Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Sanjal Wendia. I'm the knowledge manager at Scilife. Today I have with me Hermien Coopens. She is a Scilife consultant at QBD. Hermien is going to explain us some tips and tricks, some do's and don'ts from technical writing. Okay. Hi, Hermien. Good morning.
Hi,
Thank you very
Angel.
much for joining today.
No problem. My pleasure.
Yes, please just introduce about yourself and your
Yeah.
background.
Okay, will do. So good morning, everyone. As Angel said, my name is Hermien Coopens. I work as a life science consultant for quality by design. I have been working on multiple projects with multiple customers throughout the years, but my focus has always been technical writing, and I'm really excited to share my experience and knowledge as an expert with you today via this training. So I think we have 120 participants today, so let's jump in right ahead.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Angel.
I will explain the structure just,
Yeah,
and then you will begin just an introduction.
yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
the webinar is structured in 3 parts, right? So this just introduction. I will explain you some of the features of the Zoom platform, right? And then afterwards, we will go to the main training that will last about 45 minutes from Hermien, and we will leave some room for the Q&A session at the end. So you will be able to ask anything you need from the topic about the technical writing. This training about technical writing, it's a very demanded one because you know that from the QA perspective, this skill is very needed to write procedures, works, instructions, and deviations, CAPAs, and lots of other documents, right? I understand that documentation is a pillar in any quality management system. Because the way you write your documents are very critical. They are critical to people to understand them and to follow them, right? So I see that technical writing is must for avoiding the human errors. This is where my understanding. So today you will learn to write a technical text. I hope that you all also will learn your technical writing skills, right? And you will improve them. So just Hermien will show you some tips and tricks and also some do's and don'ts about technical writing. So at the end, we will leave some time for the Q&A session. Just check that below your screen, you have a Q&A button. So during the training, please, you can use this button to ask any questions you need. So I will receive all of them and I will prepare them for the Q&A session, right? So just for the people that have just dropped in, remember we have a Q&A button. Use this for the questions. And at the end, if we do not have time to respond to all of the questions we will get from you, don't worry, we will prepare a recap page and we will send it to you in the following days, right? So having said that, I would like Hermien to start with his part of the presentation. So Hermien, go ahead. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Angel. Thank you for the nice introduction. And yeah, let's go into the training. So I want to welcome everyone today to this training in technical writing. And I like to start with this slide. So the goal of this training today is to ameliorate or increase your technical writing knowledge and skills. I want to say or start this training with saying that writing is not an exact science. Everyone has his own style. It also depends what document you're writing and in which company you are working. So this is a training to give you, like Angel said, some tips and tricks, do's and don'ts. I call this training entry level, so I will share some tips. But if you, like Angel said, if you have more questions, you can ask them at the end of the session, or we can respond to you via email if there is not enough time. Technical writing is different than using technical terms. So I will explain this in the training later. We have ahead of us. And technical writing indeed is a pillar, or the documents are pillars of your quality management system. And it is used for writing deviations, root cause analysis, CAPAs, SOPs, work instructions, and so much more. And we'll go through some of these examples together today. So welcome on this technical writing training. We'll start with some theory and then an exercise on technical writing. So I want to start an exercise via the chat, so you can open that chat function and put your answer into the chat, and then Angel can moderate that. The first question that I have for you is this one. If imagine you are working in an HR function, and you have to write a work instruction for new colleagues on how to get fuel with your fuel card. How would you start, or how would you go about this work instruction? Would you go for example A, example B, or example C? You can put that in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's wait for some seconds. I'm receiving hundreds of responses, Hermien. This is very nice. Yeah, but this is excellent because most of them, probably 99%, is C. Okay,
that's really good, because that was the correct answer indeed. So we're
also happy to hear that. Yeah,
we're off to a good start. Thank you everyone for participating. We indeed, so answer C is the correct answer, and I hope at the end of this training it will be clear why. I will go to the next slide. This is an overview slide. I will not, we will go through it in details later in the next steps. But this is an overview slide set up via a book written by Kieran Morgan, and the book is called Technical Writing Process. It's mentioned here below on the slide, and it tries, or it theorizes the technical writing process. So Kieran Morgan identified five different steps in the technical writing process, each with their own activities and associated outputs. So let's go through these five steps. The first step is the planning phase. So again, famous quote below on the slide: if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And that really sums up this first step of his theoretical process. It's always nice before you start working on documents to have an idea, to have this planning phase, to have an idea of the scope of your document, to have an idea when the document should be ready, to have a schedule, to see which template you might need to use, and to see what all the information that is relevant to write this document. Below you can see some outputs that might be helpful: documentation plan, a deliverables matrix, some trackers if needed, and so another important aspect that I wanted to mention here in the planning phase is the audience. So it's always important when you're writing a document to keep your audience in mind, your target audience, and to think about the question: what does the audience really need? Audiences can be primary and secondary, and by that we mean that primary audiences can be are the people that actually use the document. So for work instruction, this could be lab technicians or operators in the manufacturing line. And secondary audience is can be, for example, auditors. So it's always good to have both these audiences in mind and to plan for the question, what does the audience need? Next phase or step in the writing process is the structure of the document. You can, and this really outs itself in creating a table of contents. I think we all know how that looks like. The next step is writing your document. So you can really reduce your writing time with the correct planning and mapping out structure. And that is that's why we can't just skip to writing in the first. That's why that's not the first step. When you write, you can have multiple drafts available. It's always nice and that you review your draft with a subject matter expert, so there are no mistakes in your draft. And when you write, there are different techniques, writing techniques. We will focus on 2 techniques today. The techniques are called KISS, which is an acronym that stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid. And another technique is the 5 Whys and 1 H. And then the 5 Whys, of course, stands for what, who, what, where, when, why. And the H stands for how. Next step and the 4th step in the plan is the reviewing phase. And I think it really is summed up with this quote on the right-hand side by Rudolf Flesch, saying that editors spend 90% of their time crossing out words and then shifting the ones that are left in the text. And that's really hard to be your own editor, because of course you've written the document and all the words that you liked so much when you wrote them down should be cut in half and rearranged completely. So that's really I like the quote, and really sums up the review step. And the last step in the writing process is publishing your document. So once your document is finalized and it can be published, it becomes a controlled document, so it should have a revision history and a revision control. And publishing your document can look, it can look like multiple things. You can email it to your manager, maybe that's already publishing something, or you can upload it in the applicable document management system. So this in short were the 5 steps of the technical writing process. Let's now go through some examples and rules of thumb. The first examples that I want to go through with you today are the deviations, the root cause analysis, and the kappa. So this first example is related to a probe alarm and then exceeding of a holding time. On the slide, you can see the deviation description. And this is a real life example, and I will go through this. I will read through this description, but I want you to pay attention, because the next slide is I have a question for you, and we can vote again. So I will read through it, and then the next one we will start voting. So this is a deviation description, and it reads as follows. The present deviation related to exopresonol 1.5 milligrams per vial to be inspected, code 410123, batch MM150, was opened on the 13th of February 2017 due to an out of alert action limits of non-viable particles monitored by a probe S17 located in the Liar Room 321, sterile area 1. Due to the alarm, the freeze-drying loading activities were stopped until environmental conditions returned within the limits, and these stoppages led to exceedance of the holding time between the beginning of the LAF card loading and the end of loading into the freeze dryer. The spec is not more than 30 minutes for the following loads, resulting in 3 batch portions, MM150/1/2 and /3. The batch portions were sampled and they tested confirm. However, the batches MM150/1/2 and /3 will be discarded because of the quality impact on the product that cannot be excluded. So I know this is a lot of info, and I will give you some time to go through. And my question for you is, and Angel will start the voting. It's a multiple choice question, and please just click on which statements you agree with. So you can, I think the voting just popped up on your screen. So please answer the question. I agree with the following. Did you have enough information? Are you sure of what happened? Did you understand all the abbreviations? If you were the QA responsible for this deviation, would this information be sufficient? And if you were the auditor reading this deviation, would this information be sufficient for you? So please vote.
Yes. Okay. I'm just Hermien. I'm receiving the same lots of questions. Sorry, lots of answers here. Just give some seconds.
Yeah.
So everybody can understand this situation, which is typical. Yeah, this is typical, and you have to think about it before taking a decision. This is very important. For sure, you need all the information, and sometimes you don't have all the information, right?
Indeed.
Okay, I think we've almost done. Just 5 more seconds. Okay, let's see. Okay, I finished the poll, right? So let's share the results.
Yeah, I'm interested.
I think you've already received them.
Yeah, I see them on the screen. So I think, I don't know if others see them. So I think around 40% said that they are happy with all the information shared. 50% of the people are really not sure what happened. Only 8% understood all the abbreviations. And I think we would, this deviation is not enough for the QA responsible, but also not enough for the auditor, but not that many people voted yes on those last 2 questions. So thank you for participating. I think I can close this result now. And indeed, this question, this voting really goes into some tips and tricks that I want to share with you on deviation writing. What is also reflected into the results. It's really nice if you have all the information is available to you. So meaning that it's very clear and specific. We know what happened, meaning we know which product, we know when it happened, we have the batch ID, we have the date. So that's really important to enclose that information in a deviation writing. I think what you typically also see is that there was some testing performed. So that's, for me, it's important that when you do those testing and just confirm that there might be no impact of your deviation, that the samples are taken under the correct conditions and conform the instructions or that you have in place for sampling. And it's important to avoid some company jargon, which was also present, I think, in this deviation. So there are some remarks that I have here and that are reflected in also in the results. So let's go to the next one. They, of course, with the deviation often comes a root cause analysis, which they also have done for this deviation on the particle out of alarm particle count probe. And I'll read through it again. So their root cause analysis is as follows. The historical data that has been analyzed and it has been evidenced that for the batches involved in the particle count deviations, the LIO had completed the SEP cycle shortly before the loading activities. In that condition, it is likely that due to a high temperature of the LIO chamber door after the SIP cycle, the air of the room in contact with the LIO door is heated, and with any residual moisture in the LIO could interfere with the S17 probe, causing the investigated alarm. I know this can be very abstract if you have no clue, if you have no clue what an LIO door or LIO even is, if you don't know what a SIP cycle is. So there are my remarks here with this root cause analysis, is that they really use some jargon and abbreviations that might not be clear to everyone. So normally you would then see an abbreviation list or so on top of the document. So that is my remark here. What I like about the root cause analysis is that it has some relevant information. It's clear for me, it's really clear what happened. It was residual moisture, and it's clear, but it's not too short. So for me, I like to know what happened. So, and that's also the goal of your root cause analysis. So it's nice that they have it here. I also like that they did some that they looked into the data that they already have, that they have historical knowledge, and that the subject matter experts were were involved into the analysis. And here it comes one of the first techniques that I wanted to highlight in the training today. One of the two technical writing techniques, I mean, the 5 Whys and the 1 H can be really helpful to use this technique to complete your root cause analysis. So to answer, of course, there was something wrong with this probe S17, and it can be really helpful to ask the questions when, where, why, what, who, and how. And this can help you in identifying the root cause. Of course, there are multiple other techniques for identifying root causes, and that is a whole separate training and another topic, I think, that we will not go into today. But it helps to have this technique in mind, and also when writing down the root cause analysis, these are the questions that the readers and your secondary audience, meaning the auditors, would like to have answered. Next, after deviation, after the root cause analysis, you probably are installing CAPAs, corrective actions and preventive actions. That's what they also did in this example. So the corrective action was to reject the batches MM150/1/2 and /3 with this batch code. the preventive action was as follows. So on the 20th of February in 2017, the maintenance personnel entered the sterile core of the LIO chamber and performed a fine regulation of the HEPA filters in order to improve the uniformity of the airflow speed among the various filters. An extraordinary cleaning of the whole room was performed with Sporklens on February 21st, 2017. And no environmental monitoring deviation was recorded in the room 321 after the intervention day. I'll share with you what I like and don't like on this, with this kappa. What I really like is that the kappa is in line, the preventive action is in line with the root cause. So they identified the root cause as being a high temperature in the LIO chamber after this SIP cycle. So what they did is improved the uniformity of this airspeed to cool down the LIO chamber faster. So that I really like that your preventive action is in line with your root cause. And it's, I think for me and auditors, it's also really helpful to have this last sentence here that they tested the effectiveness of their preventive action. So they can really, with data, show that their preventive action has been effective. That I really like. What I personally don't like in this preventive action is that, or some mistakes that I see is there is no uniformity in how they put in dates. That bothers me a little. And what I also want to highlight here is the use of the word extraordinary when speaking about the cleaning that they performed. I think it's really, and I see that often in documents, saying that you did the extraordinary clearing, or saying it is this is described in details in this document. So it's really it can be it's not always good to use those words because it can read as that you normally don't do it for example, the cleaning, that you don't really do it that thoroughly, and that you now did this extraordinary kind of cleaning. So that can really raise unnecessary questions for an auditor. And so it's best to not use any subjective wording like that. So we went through the remarks on this kappa. And so when we look at the examples that we just had, the deviations, the root cause analysis, and the kappa, I would like to give you some rules of thumb. So it's what I like to give to you as some do's and don'ts is really follow that story critically of what happened and write it down as such. Always nice if you are talking about equipment, some raw materials, procedures, mention your ID or document ID, that all people know what you're talking about. And it's all very nice to have your kappa in line with your root cause analysis. Next is anticipate on any obvious questions. If you can read through these examples. The first one really gives no context, and I have immediately some questions when reading that. The second one is already much more complete in my opinion. If you have some data in your analysis report, in your deviation and so on, always nice to summarize it in a table or in a graph. And when I talked about this extraordinary cleaning, and this ties in with that. So don't use any vague language, using the word soon, later, often, sometimes. That's always that are words that don't really describe much, and that can raise questions. And especially in this analysis, when you're doing the investigation, it's always nice that you to use correct and measurable parameters. So parameters that you can measure and then say clearly indicate that you improved after implementing the preventive action. Like I said, be objective. If you are using the one time, if you are using the term one-time event, then of course you need to make sure that it only happened once, that I often see in documentation, saying that it's a one-time event, but then it happens multiple, it happened previously, so that's then not a one-time event. And what can help you with identifying the scope of your of your investigation is really looking for equipment, for example, is looking at the previous calibration or the last maintenance. Then that really clearly indicates the scope of your investigation period. Some common mistakes that we then often see is leaving out important information, so like the SOPs, the dates, definitions of acronyms. In the root cause, it's sometimes not really clear how the root cause was determined. So also describe how you did that, which techniques you used. And another common mistake is not communicating in the right tone, so using those vague words. Let's go to the second part of examples for today's training. It's on SOPs and work instructions. So SOPs stand for standard operational procedures, and work instructions are often abbreviated as WI. Some rules of thumb for writing those documents. Determine who you are addressing. So this ties back to the planning phase and the audience, who you are addressing, so who your audience is. That really sometimes defines the level of detail of how and the structure of your documents. If you are writing a work instruction for future colleagues, that's different than writing regulatory documents, for example, for government officials. And always think about the secondary audience, meaning the inspectors or auditors. It's really important to keep that audience in mind. An instruction, if you write instructions, it should not raise questions. It's there to answer questions. So if you see that you have too many details in your documents, it's always nice to refer to other work instructions that are already in place, other links, or maybe some guidelines that are underlying guidelines. So this could all ameliorate the use of your work instruction. Explain all the abbreviations, could be in text, but really we all normally use an abbreviations list on the top. For work instructions in particularly, and also associated SOPs, of course, clearly define the responsibilities, for who is responsible for what. Define the scope of your SOP. So for what is your SOP or work instructions applicable to? What is applicable to machines, products, people? Answer those questions and explain in full all the actions that should be taken. by that I mean dies back with that a work instruction is there to answer the question and not raise any more questions. Do not only describe a goal in your work instruction, but really describe all the steps in between to get there. It is often used, work procedures and work instructions for sure are often used as first-time training for people, for first-time users. So it should be clear also for first-timers, let's say. Keep your audience in mind. Sometimes if you're writing an calibration procedure, work instruction, for example, or something related, is it then, yeah, it's just nice to use print screens, of course, when using that. But then, yeah, if you, for example, need to download something or so, is it really necessary to explain all the steps of how to download something, or is it sufficient to say download, that you can think about that? In the work instruction, you have different, the structure of a work instruction, and also other documents, but for this example, clearly a work instruction is first the purpose, the scope, the responsibilities, and then the instructions on what you need to do. So the purpose really describes what you want to achieve in this procedure. The scope, as mentioned, is what are you talking about in this procedure. The responsibilities should be indicated clearly. Yeah, of course, if you write an instruction on using some type of equipment like a pH meter or something, for example, then of course the procedure is applicable to everyone using that equipment. That's logic. But the instruction is really there to identify those users. So the question on responsibility cannot be diverted. And yeah, as like I said before, the work instruction is there to give to explain in full all the actions that we have that are needed to reach the goal. This is the last part of my training. I want to, in one slide, give you an overview with some general tips. Yeah, if I want you to take away the list of tips and tricks, do's and don'ts, that will be in the next slide. But first, I want to end this training really with the vote again. So there will probably be another pop-up popping on the screen, and I want you to think about the next sentence. So if you read this sentence, they saw the girl with the binoculars. What picture or what mental picture comes in your mind? Is it picture A, B, or C? And I will put the pictures on the screen now, and let's vote in the chat.
All right. Nice pictures. It's like finding the which is the difference here. There are many differences, of course. Okay, we are receiving lots of answers, very interesting ones. Some of them are different. You're going to get surprised, maybe.
Yeah, I really like this question to see whose mind is more creative or who thinks differently than others. So let's see, and I hope we get the results.
All right, I think we are done. So let's share the results.
Thank you, Angel. Oh, I really like it. Oh, yeah. So I don't know if you can see this. So 60%, almost 60% of the participants said they saw the mental picture A. I also, when I did this exercise first, I also pictured number A. 30% said picture number B. 8% said picture number C, and 4% people said picture number D. So thank you for answering, and I hope and I assure you that this exercise had a purpose. Let's go to the next slide. The goal of this exercise was to get you familiar with using clear and precise wording. So even the sentence, they saw the girl with the binoculars, you can interpret it in 4 different ways. So some ways maybe not as plausible as others, but you can. So if you're writing some documents, don't leave a room for interpretation. Be clear and precise, and this really, or it helps if you have your document reviewed by different people, because other people, as you saw from the results, different people think different things. So if there is room for interpretation, then probably this will be flagged by your reviewers. If you are starting to write a document, think about your audience. What does your audience need? Think about who is your audience, who is the primary audience, but know that you always have a secondary audience. Using imperative or active versus passive phrasing. By that I mean that imperative phrasing or active phrasing is often used in work instructions. So that's really, an instruction should always start with the verb and then the action that should be taken. Passive phrasing is more reserved for investigation reports, experiments, results of experiments, reports, as I said. So I know that often in pharma we use the passive phrasing. Be objective when writing documents, especially the deviations, the kappas, a root cause analysis and so on, but also when writing results report for verification reports or maintenance reports or all kind of reports. So use your facts and your figures. Stay away from emotions and any preconceptions. Stay away from assumptions, and don't use any provocative comments or words. For example, the extraordinary cleaning. And be consistent. Use the same terms throughout your text. And if you have official terms that are used in your document or just in the pharma environment in general, use those. So that was the last slide of my training. And as Angel explained, we will go into the Q&A session. I think we have some questions in the Q&A. So right. Angel, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hermien. So this concludes the second part of the training. So this main part. Now we are on time, really. So we have some spare time, some about 15 minutes to go for the Q&A session, right? So just I would like to remind everybody that you can use the Q&A button below your screen to post all your questions, right? We will go through to all of them, all we can. So any questions that is not answered today, we will prepare response to them and you will receive them by email, right? So, right, so let's go. I have some of them. already. So let's start. We have one from Desak. Desak is asking, we are currently very poor in doing root cause analysis. And most times we did not explicitly write an analysis in determining the root cause. So it's not easy when we are a very small company below, so less than 5 members, right? So how do you view this practice? Do you have any suggestion to improve, Hermien?
To improve the root cause analysis itself or writing it down? I think there are two different parts. So yeah, I've never experienced working in a small in a small company with less or maybe less than 10 members. But if there are some techniques for root cause analysis that I will not go into here because I'm not the expert on that, but some examples are using the fishbone structure. You can use you can look at the moment of your event and look what has changed. Define the scope of your investigation period and look what has changed, what has not changed leading up to your event. So there are some techniques that you can look into or follow training on to increase or increase the your experience on root cause analysis. On writing it down, so that's my expertise. I don't think you need to have, if you're in a small company, you need to have separate really separate extensive reports or documents for the deviation, the root cause analysis and the kappa. I think it can be in one investigation report, in one document. And I think some tips that I would give you is as long as you are writing down the method on your root cause analysis, how you came to that to that root cause, and if you're clearly describing what you did and if you give all the information, that's a first step. And I think the next step is then really defining the actions, what you will do to your preventive actions, but also define a strategy on how to follow up. So use or define beforehand a parameter that you can, a concrete parameter that you can measure, and see if your preventive action really had an effect on that parameter or not. That would be my tips.
Yes, great. There are lots of tools like the 5 whys, for example. This is an easy one, and I think it's very useful. I've been using it in the past, and also the fault tree analysis. So there are lots of different tools. The right way is to have several tools, to use them and document everything. Right? Okay, let's go to the another one from Anne. Anne is asking, is it the responsibility of the subject matter expert to write these deviations, or is it the technical writer from QA?
So normally a deviation, it really depends on of course the standard operating procedure that you have in your company, but what I am used to is that a deviation is started by the person that noticed the deviation, or that was there firsthand, so the first responder. And normally he or she starts the deviation, and then there should be a team assembled that really has that should normally have a subject matter expert in the team, but also technical writers can be a QA responsible. If there is regulatory impact, maybe a regulatory responsible. So really, it's a key to have the correct stakeholders on your team that really helps and benefits the discussion. But the responsibility of writing the actual deviation, I think it's collaborative. Of course, if it's a really technical issue, then you will be the expert, and you will be the expert, and you will have most knowledge on the investigations being done. So if you are the subject matter expert, I think probably you will have a high a percentage of collaboration, or percentage of the document is your writing responsibility. But of course, in the end, document is always reviewed, especially for deviations, and when you have those stakeholders around the table, the document is also reviewed by multiple functions. So really, in the end, it's a collaborative exercise.
Sure. This is really important, to be collaborative, to join all the expert mothers.
Indeed, not everyone has the same knowledge. Not everyone has the same responsibilities in the organization. So really, the first thing is to have that stakeholder group around the table.
Yeah, it makes sense completely. So let's go to another one from Marta. Marta asks, should protocols be written using imperative or passive phrases?
Normally a protocol is written in the future, so using it, so saying that an experiment or samples will be taken, experiments will be done. So it's always in the passive and in the future. And then in your report, you go into the past tense, saying the samples were taken or the experiments were done. So that's how you that's how you say it. That's the conjugation of the verbs.
Yeah, sure. Right. Another one from Nancy. Nancy, is there a difference in what to write in an SOP and what to write in a working instruction? Do you need a work instruction for each SOP?
I don't. This can also really depend on the size of your company. So I've worked in larger companies and in smaller companies, and I clearly see a difference there. In my current so to answer your question, I don't think that for every SOP you need a work instruction. Definitely not the case. But I think it really depends on the topic of your SOP also. In my current project, I see a lot of details being put into an SOP. And I'm not always a fan of that. And I see that we sometimes run into all these details, because everything you write in an SOP is part of your standard operating practice and is something that you need to follow. So so that's I want to make you aware of that sometimes it's nicer to keep the SOP general with a rationale on why you do certain things, but if you want to have really concrete details or guidance, then you can create a separate guideline or a work instruction that can be associated to this SOP, but it's not always needed that for every SOP you need a work instruction. That's not the case. Thank you for the question, Marta.
Yeah, great. Another one from Anna about process flow diagrams. So do you have any tips to prepare a process flow diagram?
I'm not not a procedure. I
think she's asking also, she has sent another question related to that. So how to make them readable to non-technical staff. I think it's more related to how they can understand and interpret a flow diagram.
Process flow, yeah. What I really, yeah, I think that's really part of your SOP. So there are different tools you can use to create the process flow, but what I typically see in an SOP is really first a process flow and then an entire section on written, where the process flow is written in text, so it's really clear what should be, which documents should be delivered first and which documents are inputs and outputs of other documents. So yeah, that's
okay. I think it's
answer.
clear. Yeah, another one from Rodelin. She's asking, can you write pre-corrective actions even though assessment or the analysis about the problem is still ongoing? Can you write pre-corrective actions?
I've never heard the term pre-corrective actions, but I think your corrective action can be before the analysis, your root cause analysis or your investigation is completed. That is something that can happen. We often see that there is a quicker decision needed, the decision needed or the corrective decision needed is needed quickly, but then the investigation, of course, takes some more time. That's why you have the corrective action that can be taken without any investigation, but the preventive action is then taken after investigation. The corrective action can also be that you put it on hold, waiting for the results of your investigation, for example. So yeah, but a pre-corrective action, I think we can just call it a corrective action. Yeah.
Okay, good. I think we have just 3 minutes to the end of the training. I think we can ask one more or two, it depends. So next question is, do you have tips to increase readability of a text?
Yeah. So I know that sometimes when you look at an alinea or a paragraph in your text can be overwhelming. So there are some techniques that really can increase the readability of the text. Some tips that are out there is only using 7 lines in a paragraph, for example, using bullets with the same grammatical structure each time, or using numbers. Tables and graphs are always nice to increase readability of a text. So, for example, the previous question on process flows, I really like to have both the process flow, the picture, let's say, and the text below explaining that there is no room for interpretation, and you can have both. And some other tips for increasing readability is, the structure, putting structure in your documents, working with headers, subheaders, and so on. So that would be my tips for increasing readability.
Okay, right. So thank you, Hermien. I think we have just arrived to the end of this training. Thank you very much, Hermien, for this wonderful training about technical issues. I hope everyone is agree with that. It has been nice. So just to let you know that you will receive the responses by email of the remaining questions we have not been able to respond today, right? So I appreciate everybody for being here today. I appreciate Hermien for being with us today and to prepare this training, right? So,
thank you.
right?
I would like to thank you also, Angel, and your team for putting up this webinar and guiding me through. And I would also like to thank you, for having me, and for everyone that joined the training. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you have taken away some pointers that can help you in your day-to-day writing responsibilities.
Yeah, excellent. So, right. Thank you, everybody. See you in the next training.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.